Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new day broadcast on Focus on Liberia, where we talk about social justice issues. My name is Priscilla Jene Mambella, your host. Today, we're going to be talking about the contributions of African Americans to the United States. The foundation of the African American contributions in early U.S. history, um, the role of enslaved Africans in building America's economic foundation, particularly in agriculture, infrastructure, and industry. We're going to be looking at that, and also African American influence in politics and civil rights, the Reconstruction era progress. We're going to be looking at all of those things today. Stay with us, stay with us. African Americans' contribution in science, medicine, and technology. We may not cover all, but this is to encourage you to do research on the contribution of African American. And this is all in observance of Black History Month. As we wrap up this February, we just want us to, take a picture. There are some of the stories that are not being told. So in the next few minutes, stay with us as we go through, as time permit us, we go through just a few highlights of economic empowerment and Black entrepreneurship, African American influence in arts, music, and culture. And last Sunday we talked about African American in the military. We had our guest here, our veteran, who gave us great insight. So stay with us today. We have with us Rita Hill. Rita is a second time around for Rita. Rita is the founding um, director of the New Media Innovation and Entrepreneurship Lab at the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Arizona State University. Um, she's an award-winning journalist, and she's the founder of Ancestries XR, an extended reality platform that helps families tell their unique genealogy's history using video game technology and immersive media. Rita has a very long bio. So I'm going to share the link and then you can just check her out. But I'm happy to be blessed to be connected to Rita from the time step on a soar and I met her at Arizona State University. She has mentored me and continue to do that both professionally and personally. So I'm so glad to have you here again with us today, Rita. Welcome to Noonday.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. So I know I went ahead and just to tell people, give the highlight of what we're going to be talking about. We may not be able to touch on everything. But yeah, this is just so to pique people interest so that people go and check it out. Just do
Mhm.
research as we observe Black History Month on the contribution in different aspect, different sector of this country and this society and the civilization we enjoy today in America, the contribution of Black people. So hopefully, this will just be like an introduction and people will take the time to just educate themselves. But yeah, so Richard, let's just go into telling us first and foremost a little bit about your background. Um, yeah, as a Black woman.
Yeah. So, from a professional standpoint, let's just start there. Ever since I was a little kid, probably 10 or 11 years old, I really wanted to tell stories. I wanted to tell stories, whether I wrote them, just made them up out of my own head, or as I got a little bit older, I love researching the stories of African Americans in this country. And one of my big influences was W.B. Du Bois, and he was the founding editor of the Crises newspaper. The Crises newspaper was the newspaper for the National Association of colored people, NAACP. And if you watched the NAACP awards last night, if you didn't see it, watch it on stream because it was so uplifting to see that this organization that's been around since 1906, I believe, 1900, no, excuse me, 1900, that is still going strong and is still uplifting our stories. And so I've always wanted to tell the story of African American people. I grew up in Detroit, went to journalism school at the university there, and I've been a journalist my entire life. But now I tell stories not just by writing them, I tell stories in an immersive media standpoint.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think I said I shared the link to. Oh, I didn't. Okay, I'm going to share the link. Um, so what is the most overlooked aspect of African American contributions to the U.S.? In your view, what is the most overlooked, or if research have shown that, what do you think is the most overlooked aspect of African American contributions to the United States?
I really believe that it's in holding this country to the standard that it set for itself back in 1776. So in 1776, on July 4th, there was a Declaration of Independence. And in that declaration, the people who signed it said, "We believe in freedom. We believe that people are all created equal and that people have a God given right to freedom, to justice, to free speech, to all of these things." And that was the standard that they set. And the biggest contribution, I think, is that African Americans have always said, "We believe in that. We believe in it. Do you believe in it?" And
Mm,
we've always challenged this country to live up, not by giving anybody a handout, but to get out of the way and to allow us to pursue happiness, to pursue commerce, to pursue our building up our community. Just get out of the way and stop tearing our communities down, stop murdering our people, especially our leaders. And we see this over and over and over again. But watching the NAACP awards last night and listening to all of the speakers, and especially Kamala Harris, who talked, we share one thing in common in terms of African Americans who come from a wide variety of places and experiences, is that we love ourselves, we love our story, we love our people. And if no one else gonna appreciate us, we're gonna appreciate us. We're
mm,
going to lift each other up.
yeah, yeah.
This
Um,
country,
Hello.
did I freeze or you froze a little
Yeah,
bit?
yeah, yeah. You freeze. You just a little bit.
Okay, all right. So
Yeah,
I think there's a misconception that we've just been kind of these helpless people who've done nothing,
yeah,
and it's just not true.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw this clip that but before I came across the clip, it was just few days ago. So but we did this exercise in class some time ago where the lecturer gave us the assignment and pair us why, to ask the question why. So I saw this clip and then the person was saying that African Americans or black people need to get over themselves, and we all, something like that. And then the first person, then the second person asked why, why, until he was able to get to the point. Uh, why are they not educated? Well, because of red line, or because the schools were underfunded. Why? Well, because of racism, and why? Until he came to the point to actually say the first generation of African American to benefit from the civil right movement or equal right as it is now are not even in existence or are within existence. So the point was that, America just in recent years, according to what he was quoting, was able to honor what they promised, that we are all equal, and gave this group of people equal rights. But I know it's been far beyond that point. So I wanted to ask you, how how did enslaved African Americans contribute to the building of the United States, both physically and intellectually?
Yeah, so when the first Africans were brought to America in 1619 from Angola, these were highly accomplished people who were brought over. And so from that point moving forward, and they were brought over not as chattel slaves, but they were brought over as indentured servants. So after so many years, just like the white poor people from Ireland and places like that, and from England who came over after so many years, I think like 6 or 7 years, they were freed and they started businesses. They started their farms and all of that. And that has always been the thing, is that we didn't wait. We always pushed for legislation to make things equal, but we never waited. So from the very first, we've always created our own institutions because we had to. So when you think about during slavery, where African Americans worked in agriculture and who innovated to tame the soil, to create tools, to create processes in order to make agriculture more efficient in the United States. We were the ones doing the work. So we're the ones who came up with the ideas. As you know, I run an innovation lab. So when I'm in the innovation lab and I'm trying to figure out how do I harness artificial intelligence to do a certain thing, I have to sit there and figure it out myself. A PhD who studies, history of journalism can't come over and tell me this. I figure it out because I'm the one doing the work. And that was the case back from the beginning of slavery in this country. Also, you have to remember that there were always a number, a smaller number, but a number of free African Americans who worked alongside of their free counterparts, white counterparts, to
Hmm.
to uh, to run farms, to have their own businesses, and that's always been the case. But that's often overlooked in terms of not everybody was a slave, but we also understood that so many of our brethren and our sisters were slaves, and so we would buy them, we would help free them, we would help them to escape so that we can have a more just and equal um, opportunity in this country. We've always done that.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned so many great points, Rita. Thank you. I want to make special particular reference to when you talk about the contributions. We into no, you said we had to have our own institutions. Um, so I read in different versions and also watched documentaries about it, and it's part of one of my schoolwork anyway, because I'm doing social work. And then we were looking at social policy and warfare policy. Anyway, so that was where I learned that African Americans, so they through the Black Panther Party, they were catering to the community, and the initiatives that they introduced kind of was later replicated by the American government, the federal government. Even though they branded these people as troublemakers and then they broke up then, but the very thing they were doing, providing food and services, catering to the community, and providing the same the idea of public services, like social services, like food stamps and those kind of things were replicated from that group, like the Black Panther party and something like that. So I just wanted to agree with you on the point when you said we had to build our own institutions, and most of these institutions are informed how Greater America or the American government was able to, you know, yeah, just have an idea as to how to cater to other people who they left out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, one thing I want to point out is when you go back to 1865, when slavery officially ended with the constitutional amendment,
Mm,
and there were 4 million African Americans in this country, 4 million, from sea to shining sea. So in 1865, San Francisco was already a nice sized city. Texas, New York, all the way down to Florida, 4 million, half of whom were children. So let's come down to 2 million. So 2 million people in a country this big that takes up an entire, North American continent, just about. We had to have our own institutions. We had to have our own ways of healing people, our nurses, our hospitals.
mm,
We had to have our funeral homes. We had to have our schools because in many areas of the country, by law or by tradition, African Americans were not welcome in those spaces. So let me give you an example of Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona in 1919, 1920, uh, there were only a few thousand African Americans living in Phoenix, Arizona at that time. We had our own hospital run by a Black man. Two doctors ran it. We had our own stores. We had our own restaurants. We had our own communities, our own churches. And that wasn't a large number of people. And I did a whole project around it. And there are a lot of white people who grew up in Phoenix and they have no idea of that history. And that has been the thing for so long. But the myth is perpetrated. And I think a lot of folks who come here from other countries believe this mythology that Black people did nothing. We're waiting on somebody else to come and save us. It's not, and that's not the case. In when the Emancipation Proclamation was read at midnight on January 1st, 1863, in Hampton, Virginia, there were already 7,000 African Americans who had escaped from slavery and had created this little community, a 7,000 person community in Hampton University. Coincidentally, only a few feet from where the first Africans got off that ship in 1619. We already had established schools, we had already established businesses, we were working for the Union Army. And when the Emancipation Proclamation was read, saying all of the African Americans held in slavery in the rebelling states were free, we were already ahead of the game in terms of building up these communities and schools. So, free Black men and women, especially women, were the teachers. They taught the children during the day. They taught the free adults at night. Now, white abolitionist women came down as well, but this is what we do, and this is what we've already always done, is that we see a need, there's an opportunity, we create that opportunity. There was a
mm,
tree that we used to hold lessons under that tree, and it's called Emancipation Oak, because that's where that Declaration of Independence was read by a white officer on the Union side and said, "You all are free." Do you know that tree is still standing? Do you know
mm,
where that tree is right today? It is on the grounds of Hampton University. And that's what grew out of that camp. That's what grew out of those first efforts to teach um, newly freed Black children and newly freed adults. So, all these years later, you can go right now in your research and look at Hampton, and it's a proud university that has a huge endowment, that we've educated Africans, we've educated back in the late 1800s Japanese who would send their promising men to the Americas. You couldn't go to Harvard, you couldn't go to William and Mary, but you could come to Hampton and get your degree if you were a Japanese son of a powerful family. You Native Americans, you couldn't go to Harvard, you couldn't go to all these other places. You came to Hampton and got your degree, and then you went back to help your community. So you look at the continuum of 1619 to today, that one little area of Virginia is an example of us never giving up, never waiting for somebody else to come
Mm.
and do something for us, but we've always done it ourselves. And people hide that history in the same way that they hide African history. Most people in America think Africans are running around with a bone in their nose and wearing, a grass skirt. And we know that's not true, but that's the mythology. Let me tell you one other quick story. In 1900 was the World's Exposition, the World Fair in Paris. And so America always had an exhibit every time there's a world fair. And this time, a couple of prominent African Americans went to our delegation and said, "Can we put together a small exhibit about Black people?" And they were like, "Sure, go ahead." W.B. Du Bois and the other people that was part of the committee, they collected a copy of every book that ever been written by Black people, compositions, operas, poetry, paintings, all of this, and they put it together. So when the World's Fair opened in 1900, all these Europeans went to that exhibit, and they were like, "We thought Black people couldn't read. We thought Black people, you're writing operas, you're writing classical music, you're writing all this other stuff, you've done these beautiful paintings and this poetry." They had no idea. They won the most best in show in terms of the best exhibition of the entire World's Fair, where all these countries had their own displays. And the Europeans were looking at the Americans like, "You've been lying. You've been lying about those people." And you all should read about it, because it's just amazing what they were able to do and show the world that what you might think we are, you don't know. So now you know. And that's where we are today, that still people don't understand and
Mm.
don't think that we have built strong businesses, strong institutions. Yes, there are a lot of poor Black people in this country. There are a lot of poor white people in this country. But considering the fact that we're 13% of the US population, and you look at everything that we've done, it's just that a lot of people don't know about it. So you have folks who come here for other countries, from the Caribbean, from Africa, from other places, and they just think we've been sitting around on our hands. Sorry, untrue.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Thank
we've
you.
never given up hope. We have never, I can tell you, we have never given up hope, even today with this new administration and just how toxic. They're cutting scholarships for historically Black students who go to historically Black colleges and universities, who are studying agriculture, who are studying food safety and implementation. But guess what? Those kids are going to go to school come fall. You know why? We got us. Always have and always will. They'll be there. If
Thank
each one of us has to adopt one of those kids and make sure that they finish up,
We will.
Oh, yeah.
We will. We will. Yeah. Yeah, that's a sick way to let me just share this a co-worker okay so this person was telling me, I don't want to be specific, you know. So when this administration started, I was just, for me, I'm so this is sensitive. I was just so down, you know, because I know what I read and the kind of struggle for the black people and then advocates, you know, social justice people over the decades fought for, and to get to this point and all these things being rolled back. So Moody, and then this guy called me. He said, look, after all of this, then you know, I think this is shocking, but after all of this, you'll come to the point where you realize this is a reset.
Mm,
This has happened multiple times, and I will let you share, Rita, because some was it last year or 2 years ago, you shared some old newspaper clippings with me from the destruction of, you know, black wealth after people rose to a certain point. So he started telling me those same things. He said, "This is a reset."
mhm,
Afterwards, we will go back within our communities and
mhm,
then realize, if they say no diversity, inclusion, and equity, so white run institutions, predominantly white run institutions, do not want to employ black, we will start employing among ourselves. You will see that when we start building, when we start focusing from within, we will build wealth.
mhm,
We are more. It's not like in the past. It's not in the 30s or in the 20s where we were minority.
mhm,
Maybe culturally, the white culture is dominant, but we
mhm,
are more numerically. So we will strategize and then we'll build wealth from within. So I was saying, okay, but then where will we take the resources from? Because the cutting off all of these resources, and you know, government's supposed to support its citizens because we're all paying taxes. But it just when you saying it that we those children will go to school. Guess what? Because we got us. It just reminded me of what he was telling me.
mhm. Yeah, it's so true. Compared to the larger white community, black people are not wealthy compared to that, but we
Mm.
have wealth. Our internal wealth is larger than a lot of countries, many countries. Um, what we spend as, you know, middle class and upper middle class African Americans, what we spend most of our disposable money on is not shoes or cars. It's on our poorer family members, who might be in the South and might be in other places. We're always helping our cousins. We're helping the community. We do it through our churches and our institutions, our scholarships. So this is how we've always done it, where each one teach one, each one reach one. And you go back to the many times where our institutions were burned to the ground, our communities were burned to the ground. Again, last night at the NAACP awards ceremony, um, all these celebrities as well as regular people are raising millions of dollars to restore Altadena, which was a historically black community in Los Angeles that was burned to the ground, that almost every house was wiped out. And of course, poachers are trying to come in and grab that land because it's a beautiful area. But we're raising money and we will rebuild. We raised money when Hurricane Katrina came in. We raised money when all of these African American towns and neighborhoods were destroyed. We raised money, we gave money, we took people into our own homes. And I know you've always said what a surprise it was that I would take, you know, a certain young man into my home. He wasn't the first one. There were about three, four before him that you bring into your home and you help out, because that's what we have always done. And Kamala Harris said that last night. We have always done this. This is what's happening right now is nothing new.
You take a Ghanaian and then you took Liberian, you even took Blessed. My own son, you took me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
One
amazing.
young lady that I took in back when I was, in my 20s in my first house in Maryland, she became a top editorial writer for the Seattle newspaper, then the vice chancellor at one of the universities out in Washington, and she runs a big nonprofit now. And I took her in. I mean, there's so many people, and I'm I'm not doing anything that my cousins and my aunts and other people haven't done.
Mm,
I was happy I could help you, but this is what we do, and I've always done, and will continue to do.
mm,
So everybody's waiting on Black people, especially Black women, to get upset and, cussing and fussing and out there, whatever. But we've been through this before. The young people, we're teaching them that this is the playbook. This is how we've done it before. You dust off the Black Panther, dust all that dust off. It's like, here we go. We're going to start feeding people, make sure that the scholarships are there so folks can continue with their schooling, make sure that communities are rebuilt, and make sure that our businesses continue to thrive.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
breaking one of the breaking news things is, I'm retiring the end of June, and I'm tired. I would love to sit back and take 4 or 5 months off and put my feet up, but I'm going straight down back into the community.
Mm,
I'm gonna go back to that strip of land in Virginia where it all started.
mm-hmm.
Plant myself there and do what needs to be done.
Could
I
be.
can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I saw this little clip where you just alluded to that. You mentioned that in passing, the girl was talking the same thing. She's Haitian. So this is a friendly reminder to Black women. I already know that a big chunk of us are already on code. To the rest of y'all who are thinking about protesting, don't do it. These protests are going a certain way. They're like really civilized because Black people are not out there. Okay. The brutality and all that stuff that we normally see, we're not seeing that because we're not out there. They're waiting on us to come out there so that they can enforce martial law or whatever other sinister plans that they have up their sleeve. They're going to use us as target practice. So remember, we are not protesting. We are staying home. We're staying safe. We're staying safe from rioting. We're staying safe from being trampled. We're staying safe from being targeted, right? Just whatever sinister plans they have. We are not getting involved. They need us, and we're not going to do it. Please stay home, stay safe with your kids and your family. Live to fight another day, but we ain't getting out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So
she
true.
said, live to fight another day. She didn't say we will be quiet. She's not saying we will fold our arms, we'll fight another day, but just not protesting.
Yeah, yeah. And on the 28th of February, which is in 5 days, there's a nationwide African American boycott of all shopping. Amazon, Walmart, you know, Safeway, the grocery store. If you need something, buy it from a Black owned business. If you can't wait, buy it from a Black owned business. And because we're going to show them, remind them of how much money we drop into this economy every day. And that's what I'm saying. That's what's happening, that people are not, because you're not out there, blocking traffic and doing the things that we normally do. It doesn't mean that work's not being done.
Um,
Have you heard about Hillman Talk? Hillman Talk?
no.
So when Florida and some of these other states have, in the last year said they weren't going to teach African American history, a PhD, a professor of history, started and
On TikTok.
started this community called Hillman, and Hillman was the fictitious Black college from the Cosby shows that one of the kids went off to. And so when you go to hillmantalk.com now and you look at the course offerings, you have hundreds of courses that professors, Black professors all across the country are doing. So if you're sitting in Florida, you're sitting in Texas, or now the whole United States and in Oklahoma, one of these places where they're not even mentioning Black history, they're forbidden. Get the books out of the library to even tell people about Du Bois, to tell people about Tulsa, to tell people about, slavery. Oh, you can get home from that terrible school system and turn on your computer and you can take college level courses from African American professors who are teaching it. And this is an example of what we did back in 1863, what we did back in 1920, what we did back in the 1950s. We've always done this. So each one who has a skill. And so for the professors is teaching. For other people is creating these businesses. For business owners, it's employing. For people with an extra room in their house, it's sharing. So this is what Black people in America, what we've always done.
Yeah. So
If you can drop that in the chat so people can go and take a look at it.
I just did. I just did.
Yes.
Uh, um yeah. So yeah, like the person that was talking to me, that's why he said it was among some of the things he said. He said we were built within, when we start buying, supporting Black owned businesses. He said Asians start doing the same thing within Asians community. Latinos start doing the same thing within Latino community. Scoring or lose, numerically we are more if
Mhm.
we start supporting businesses within our communities. You will see that. But at the end of the day, then these people get jealous, they go and then they start attacking those communities. Please tell us about the situation of when they attack um, the Black Wall Street.
Yeah, which one too? So there have been so many um
Oh my word, really? So
yes,
many?
oh my God. And I'm putting the Tulsa one from the New York Times, but I want you, the racial violence in the United States, the Detroit race riot, the Detroit race riot of 1863, the New York City draft riots of 1863, Memphis riots of 1866. And you go down and you look at all of these various African American communities that were attacked, that were burned, that were people run out of business, run out of a city. In 1906, and I helped a friend of mine create this interactive exhibit. 1906 in Atlanta, the white community just got upset over some rumors that somebody assaulted a white woman, and they went into the Black community and just started burning and destroying everything. Used Black children as target practice, pulled people off of the trolleys, the streets, and just massacred people. And if you want to see, I'm just going to put a link to Past that details all the times that African American communities were just attacked. And that's not counting just the individual attacks where, your brother goes out you know, to check on something and he never comes home because he was strung up by a tree and lynched. And there is a memorial to all of the African Americans who were lynched in the United States, and it's in Birmingham, Alabama. And I went there a few years ago, and it's the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. And I'll put that link in there. So if any of you are ever in Birmingham, Alabama, there's the memorial, and then there's a museum that's a few miles away. And when you go there and you see, it's a very new museum, so it's very interactive. And you see how mass incarceration is in many ways re-enslaving so many people.
Mm.
That lynching memorial, the uh, it's very moving as you read on these concrete structures on a particular day in a county. And sometimes you see all these names and they all have the same last name. So in other words, they went to somebody's home and they killed from the grandparents down to the 2-year-olds, maybe
Mm.
6 or 8 people. They and in that county on that day, how many people they just went and murdered. And this is the truth. And that's why Ida B. Wells and a lot of Black news people back in the late 1800s, early 1900s had this crusade against lynching, and got fought for legislation to make lynching a crime and to investigate the lynching. So when they wouldn't investigate the FBI, we investigated. Our Black reporters investigated and would prove that the person didn't just disappear or run away, but they were murdered, women as well as men. And the way they did it was always the same. Um, a lot of times it was like, oh, a white woman was attacked by a Black man. Then it was like it wasn't one Black man; it was a whole bunch of Black men, and they're attacking white women, and that would get all these white men upset, and they'd be liquored up, and they go out and just start killing and shooting and lynching and stabbing anybody they saw who happened to be African American.
Yeah, that's where they get this sexist dog whistle about we have to protect the women. Like, you protecting us from who?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah, because if you read Asian African history, there wasn't any such thing, you know,
yeah,
until but white men needed to make himself feel indispensable in God to women and keep the women down. So they had to justify that by telling them you are fragile, you are at risk, you are in danger. So we
yeah.
have to protect you.
Protect you at all costs. And there's so many times this lie has been the excuse for wanting attacks against African Americans. The other thing was you'll see in that link to Black Past in 1863, Lincoln needed more men to fight against the Confederates. And so he instituted a draft. And on the day that the draft was instituted in New York City, they read the names of the people who are going to be sent in to become Union soldiers. The newspapers riled everybody up, these white newspapers, and they said, if slavery ends, all of these Black people are going to come to the cities and take the jobs of, these Irish immigrants. And they got so upset by that evening, they went out to the Black community in Paradise, and they just started burning and destroying. They went to the richer Black people's homes, the doctors and the dentists and the professors. They took every stick of furniture and art out of those homes, and then they burned them. And even the New York Times the next day just called the politicians and the newspapers out on this and said, you did this, you riled these people up. And if you read it, you almost think that they were talking about January 6th, 2000. I mean, except for the language is a little different, but the meaning was the same, that you are riling these people up against these African Americans who did nothing to you. They even went to the orphanage, the colored orphanage, with 200 children and some nurses, and they set it on fire. It's by God's grace that people were not killed. All of them got out. And they took them down to the police department in one of the precincts, and they held all these people in the precinct to keep them from being slaughtered.
Yeah,
And this is our history.
yeah. And Rita, that's some of the things we tell, before this man became president, who is now. That's what some of us were saying. For me, it was not about parties, party policy and politics. I'm Democrat. I'm Republican. I've never been loyal to a particular political party. For me, it's just ideas. Uh, but I honestly used to be afraid to go to church. This is the truth. His first term, when he was campaigning, I was working at a nursing home, and when he started those kind of ginger rhetorics, people started being emboldened. I remember the nurse, two white nurses. I was the only one on the floor with them, and they came at me with, and when Trump would be president, he will stop you from sending our money to your country, and he will close Western Union. No money is leaving, and that Sunday I was the only one there, and what could I have done? I said, you take this to HR, they would deny it. Or why did they think they felt it was okay to attack me, and I've been walking behind me when I go in this room to change, or what you might call a resident. These two white, blonde, nice, and female and male. They thought it was okay to do that. And I couldn't talk back and say, the money that is stopping Western, they're going Trump, you're happy that Trump will win and shut down Western Union. Are they distributing the money? Do we stand online and take free money? I'm breaking my back here, changing someone so that I will get paid. But my thing is, those kind of rhetoric, it put other people at risk.
Mhm.
I used to be afraid to go to church because now I started thinking, oh, these people, they kind of hate here. The people may look for an all black church or all African church to go attack and say, there they are taking our money, they are taking our jobs. And so, because it happened with a black church where Obama had to go. So these kind of rhetoric, they have consequences. So they're not just politics. You cannot be putting people against each other. And these rich people do that. Instead of providing basic social services, they put you and I against each other, so
That's
that, yeah, they scapegoat us, so that uh, um, they're not held accountable to do what needs to be done for the citizenry. And that's just what happened in our Tulsa situation.
well, when you look at just in the last, few weeks since the new administration started, in a month, inflation was supposed to come down immediately. The cost of eggs was supposed to plummet. Instead is way up. But we have all these distractions of the cultural wars, all this stuff, all the rhetoric. Get rid of DEI. Getting rid of DEI is not going to bring the cost of eggs down. Getting rid of DEI is not going to, make it so that you can afford your rent or afford a house or to put gas in your car. It has nothing to do with that. But this has been a playbook that's been used over and over again. But I'm gonna
Mhm,
tell you something. The only thing that they hate worse than black people is poor people, and that includes white people too.
mhm,
And when you look at those people who were egged on to attack black people back in 1863, when you look at all of these other race massacres, and I sent you that list. When you look at them and you look at the communities where it happened, there were large numbers of poor white people, and who are, if they live in there now, they still poor. Their grandparents were poor. They're poor. And by attacking DEI and trying to destroy federal workers. And you see these people now pleading for their own jobs because it's like, yeah, fire all these people, get rid of them. Then all of a sudden, your Forest Service job is gone, or the postal worker job that you had was gone, and that was good money if you lived in a small town in Texas. I'm talking about white people and black people. If you were a postal worker and you were working for the federal government, you were almost middle class because you had health insurance, you have a pension plan, you had a good job, and they're just cleaning people out. And now you see folks on TikTok and on X saying, please, not my job. And see, they've rolled this play out just like we have a play out, a playbook how to react. They have a playbook how to attack people. Um, and there's a great book called White Trash, and it was written by a historian who looked at the number of times they've used um, it used attacks, get white people to attack black people as a way of controlling poor white people, of which there are many in this country, and it's worked every time. It has worked every single time. It's never been a time where it didn't work. And this is the same playbook that they're using right now, unfortunately. And I hate the fact that a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, black, white, Latino, but that's the way it is. And until people wise up, but we know what we're going to do.
I'm sorry, I went to grab my book, The White Trash. I have it. I wanted to show it, yeah, for
It's
people to
so
see.
good. It's so good. It's
Yeah,
so good.
it is. Well, it's just the same thing we're saying where, rich white people want to scapegoat uh, um, people of color and put them against those they consider white trash, poor white people, because they don't want to be responsible for doing the decent thing that our government should do for its citizens. So they just pit people against each other. Like you're talking now, they're not even taking care of the economic issue. They so got us caught up in social culture war, and then they can get to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
They can get to the likes of Elon Musk. They can get to do what they need to do while you and I are each other through.
Yeah.
That's what the whole thing is about.
Yeah.
You
So
know.
when they cut the federal workforce, try getting, if you have a question about your taxes, good luck getting through. If you need a passport, good luck getting that. If you want your kid to go to university, a lot of these grants and things, they're not just for black people, they're just for economically depressed people. And that's a lot of folks in West Virginia and Oklahoma and West Texas. We have the we're the sickest people of the developing countries. They won't extend um, they won't extend Medicaid in a lot of these counties and states, and people are on meth and fentanyl or just not healthy because they're eating all this junk food, and so the standard of living is down. And Americans are worse off in many ways, but it's not because of us. It's
Yeah.
because of policies.
Yeah.
And we've been fighting for better for not just us, but for all of us. So if you want to slice your nose off to spite your face, we're over here taking care of business, taking
Yeah.
care of our people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, I'm not happy that, someone is going to lose their job, their federal job. I'm not happy that someone is going to, but at the same time, the past few days, when I hear this one, and then I talk in my Liberian, it says, "Time trap is not for rat alone." So, people say that, when you set the trap, in a town you say we setting this trap to catch right or
Mhm.
mice. It's not for rats alone. Anyone could go past that and step in it and they grab your leg.
Yeah.
So this thing, when it started happening, they thought it was just for particular people. Now the whole world is in chaos. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, you think it was
But
one
yeah,
person.
so many research from a health perspective that happens in this country as well as in other countries. Like there's been a big study out of Colombia, looking at Alzheimer's, and that's so important to millions of Americans and Europeans who, like my family, where Alzheimer's run in the family. And if you're not studying and trying to figure out, well, why does this family have Alzheimer's much more than that family? When you're not doing that, when you're not have cancer trials in different countries, when you're not comparing, Americans to people maybe in a developing country, when all of that work stops, it's going to hurt us. and I mean us in terms of Americans, and people are so short-sighted when you deport thousands of people, and then you don't have anybody picking the fruits and the vegetables and working in these farms. And all these farmers know this. They know this because they know who they've illegally employed. And all of a sudden, what's going to happen to the price of lettuce and oranges and pecans and strawberries? All of that's going to go up because there are not enough people to work it. And I'm sure they're going to go and make prisoners do it, as well as people who get assistance. So if you are disability, but you can half walk, then you better get your behind down to that farm and start picking vegetables, because otherwise you're not going to get a check. And that's Black people as well as poor Black people, as well as poor African, white Americans too. So I feel sad, but at the same time, like Kamala Harris said last night, we know that the real work begins now, and we're not going to give up in pushing for better for our community as well as the rest of this country, because that's one thing we've always believed. You made a promise in that Declaration of Independence, in that Constitution. You made a promise, and we're going to hold you to it.
Yeah.
And not just for us, but for everybody who live and breathe in this country. We're going to hold you to it. And I hope that people wake up sooner rather than later, that we
Mhm.
don't have to have riots in the street. You were talking about your coworkers making those comments, and I read that a young girl committed suicide in
Yes.
Texas because
Yeah.
she was being bullied and saying they're going to come and get you. I'm going to call ICE.
To get your parents, and no one is going to raise you. Yeah.
And she committed suicide. And I hope that her parents sue the school district, and the kids who were teasing and bullying her, hope they sue them for everything they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, since some white people just will not take responsibility, everything they want to be fragile about it. Someone jump in, and the kids are innocent, and everyone was like, "No, they're not innocent. They bullying another kid to death. Children in fifth grade or sixth grade are not innocent, or even fourth grade. In fact, these are as nasty as their parents, the household they come from, because you have to come from household that condone bullying for you to do that to another kid, and now the little girl is dead.
Yeah,
Instead of focusing on her parents or the child that lost their life, you're going to advocate here for those that led her to kill herself. So yeah,
yeah,
I agree with you. I hope the parents sue that school. Yeah,
yeah,
but seriously, they need to understand that this have mental implication on everyone, and you thought you were going to be untouched.
yeah. No, no, baby, nope. It's like violence. You have violence in one community, the poor community, and now the United States. Every time you turn around, every couple of days, is somebody that committed horrendous acts of violence. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same kind of rhetoric. We have Rwanda as example. We have some people talk about Hitler all the time, but because wars have power, you don't demonize one group of people against others. But they thought that these things were okay. Richard, I don't want to abuse your time. What are your thoughts on? Let me to send us home. Um, what would what would you like to leave our audience with? What are some of the key takeaway,
yeah, I would say.
or what can individuals do to help ensure that African American history and contributions are preserved and celebrated?
Well, I would say for Africans on this call to just, do a little bit of looking at history and realize that, we have used our heads as a battering ram to knock down the door of opportunity in this
Mm,
country. And for other minorities who've come in behind us, that is easier. Never said
yeah,
it was easy, but easier. And we're continuing to do that because, we know that we can all in in the world do better. And I think being in this country for more than 400 years, we know that we can do better. And so we're always going to fight for us as a people to do better. And that's more opportunity for everybody. And the first African American newspaper was created in 1829 called the Freedom Journal. And the biggest issue that was around that was whether African Americans should be freed and sent back to Africa, which of course later happened with Liberia. So the very first newspaper was to give voice to the African Americans who were here, who said, well, I want to go back. I mean, we've been here for, 200 and some years at this
Yeah,
point.
this is our home.
Yeah, we're not going back. And it was around for 2 years. It's called the Freedom Journal. And that was the big question, whether to send people back to West Africa, which I know eventually had implications for what became Liberia and for the people who are there, the indigenous people who are there. So Africans and African Americans have always had this, symbiotic relationship. And if this is still a beacon of light for people to come here and do better in the United States, is because we fought, bled, and died so that it's easier for other people to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we don't want anybody to, we're just saying join us in the fight, join us in doing what is right, and to
Mm-hmm.
make this country own up to the promise that they signed and made. So
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Because we're going to continue to fight. We have no other choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I know. I say I'll let you go, but then I see, because you mentioned the boys a few times. Are there other people who are some unsung African American heroes that more people should know about?
Oh my God. So Du Bois, then you have people like Walter White, who was another one of the early leaders at the NAACP, and he looked white. He was black, but he looked white, and he would sneak down into places where there had been a lynching, and he kind of asked around and would basically investigate to find out what happened. And then they just thought he was a white man. Oh yeah, we lynched that, what, and they would, talk about it. And then he would print this in the newspapers. There are people like Ida B. Wells, who was a crusading journalist who carried, two guns on her hips. And when she went down into the South, she knew she might have to fight her way out of there. Um, and of course, there's people, so many unsung African Americans like Maggie Walker, who created a Black Wall Street
Yeah.
in Richmond, Virginia. And most people don't know anything about her, but she did that. And that community is still around, and her company is still around. And, there's just so much that we've built, and people don't realize it, but it's okay. We know. just just F around and find out what it is that we did. That's all I'm asking you. Just find out.
Find out. Find
Yeah.
out. Find out for yourself. Find out.
Don't
Yeah.
be
Talking about just making excuse to be able to carry out violence, white people would just trump up charges to carry out violence. So last week the guest we had shared this book with me, and we talked about it, where there was a standoff between the black service people. At the time it were men, all men, black servicemen, and the white guys. They never used to allow black servicemen to carry, I mean, to be on the battlefront, just to unload, the boxes and the ammunition, and hand it over to white guys. So, but other than that, they never used to allow them to go and fight. So, one of the quotes in the book, the guy said, later, after they did away with all of that, and black servicemen and white service people were allowed to work alongside each other and serve in the Mediterranean, he said, at the end of the day, I realized I was just fighting for the right to die. because when black people were not allowed, to do active combat, just to unload it, to do, they basically they were not in the fight, in the front fight, in the battle front. They just used to hand things over. Anyway, so one day this white guy told a lie against a black serviceman and said he whistled at this white nurse. So, talking about just making excuse for fine reason to carry out violence, they just told a lie against this black serviceman. That he was whistling at the nurse. So they were going to get this black guy, and then the black servicemen all banded together and said, "No, this is not happening today." So instead of handing the ammunition over, they held it at the white serviceman, and there was a standoff until some intervention came from over here and the supervisors. Yeah, it was that bad. Then the white serviceman later had to apologize that he was telling a lie, that he was actually a white guy who whistled at the nurse.
Yeah.
So they did all of those things sometimes just to again lynch black people or to carry out violence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that still happens nowadays, where uh, black men particularly are attacked for no reason. Lies are told on them. White woman to kill her children, and then this black man, carjacked my car and took my children, and she did it. I was just watching a, a, a something on TV about that, and I remember that case where this woman just made up a whole lie, and she drowned her children herself, and in the car, just took the car and let it roll down in a lake with her two little kids in the back seat, and they died. And she said, "Oh, this black man, hijacked the car, carjacked the car, and took off with her kids in the back seat." And she just made it up because she didn't want to be a mama anymore.
But she had to scapegoat a black person.
Yeah, and they found out, and it was just incredible because she was dating this new guy, and he didn't want kids, so she's like, okay, well, I know how to get rid of my children. She's still in jail, thank God. But it was just horrible, and that thing happened so much. Always blame the black person, but we know the game. We know how the game is played, and all we can do is just be vigilant and keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
And that's it. And just watch our children. Just watch them. Make sure that they're okay, and that they know not to put themselves in certain positions. Be careful where you go, who you're hanging out with. So
Yeah, at the end of the day, hatred, racism in this country, it doesn't pick and choose between whether you're African or you this. Because before you even start speaking, the first thing they see is you're black. You find yourself in trouble. You get pulled over because a black woman is behind the wheel. So yeah, so like Rita said, I just want to encourage us that this is the time now for us to look within and see how we can harness resources and skill and effort and idea. Look, in as much as it's not a good thing, but honestly, no one is kind of spared from this kind of uh, um, societal culture. I remember quickly before we close, let me share this quick. Coming from in Walmart, that time I was working, I was doing caregiving. I used to take my jog with me. And then I take this jog in Walmart. I came from work, I used to take the bus. So I didn't have my own car, so couldn't leave it on the bus. I had it. I went in Walmart to get something with my bag. Coming out, and then the security accused me of stealing the jug because the jug was so clean. I used to always wash my jug every day. Stealing the jug, Rita. The thing that saved me because it was not on the receipt. You had to show the receipt, but the jug looked new in my hand, and he said I didn't have receipt for it. What saved me was that I had water. I had water halfway because Arizona is hot, so we take water around. I
Yeah.
drank halfway and I had the water, and then when he opened and saw that, and then he was, oh, then he let me go, but he put me on his side actually, and then when he saw the water in, and I took this to work. It's my own
Yeah.
job, and then they let me go. So sometimes some of those things that they suggest you to when people are passing by you, nobody was put on his side for stealing. But yeah, was a black girl. I had a new looking jug in my hand, and then I was put on his side.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous some of the things that happen to us because just because you're black.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, it's so true. Well, hey, before I get out of here, remember February 28th, don't buy anything. Don't go to the store, don't get anything. Fill up your card, do whatever you need to do, but on the 28th, withhold that money unless you're spending it at a black owned company. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today on a new day. Thank you for being a change, Rita, and for
Oh,
sharing your day with us.
okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to our viewers for joining us as well. Let's continue the dialogue and elevate our voices and actively participate in shaping a world where social justice isn't just an aspiration but a reality. And I want to encourage you to explore Black history beyond February and integrate it into your everyday learning. Please explore Black history beyond this month. Integrate it into your everyday learning. There are books and documentaries that you can look up. There are museums like the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC, or maybe you can find a local one in your community, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. It's a new day, everyone. Thanks, Rita.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We all